Okay, for this problem, find the diameters of all the steps in the pulley shown in figure if an open belt is to be used. Shafts are 24 inches apart. So parang yung example natin kanina sa number 1 ay gagamit tayo ng formula na tinandaan natin kanina. Pero at this point, with this open belt, we have this new data which is ang ating C, 24 inches. So C is the center from the driver shaft to the driven shaft. So ang matatatagdagdag na formula ay ito po, pi over 2 times d1 ng driven plus driver 1 plus driver 1 or driven 1 plus driver 1, I should say minus quantity squared over 4c. That will be equivalent to pi over 2 times the driven 2 plus the diameter of the driver 2 plus quantity d2 minus d2 of the driver squared all over 4c. So, yan ay isa sa mga formula na kailangan nating tandaan para makuha ang mga missing diameters dito sa ating problem. So, without further ado, lista na natin ang given, ganun din ang hinahanap. So, ang given natin ay D1, we have 18 inches. But we have missing diameters which is D1 as well as D2 and D3. So, para makuha yung mga values na yan, okay? So, para makuha yan, we will use the formula na ginamit natin kanina, which is this N1 of the driven shaft over the speed of the constant from the driver shaft is equivalent to the driver 1 over driven 1's diameter. So, from this data, we can get, or we will substitute it, and we will get 900 RPM over 150 RPM from the constant speed from the driver pulley is equivalent to 18 inches over D1. Okay, by shift solve, we can get 3 inches as our D1. Okay, so lagay na natin 3 inches. So in order to get the diameter of the driver 2 as well as the driven 2, so i-apply lang natin yung formula kanina. So, ang formula natin kanina ay pi over 2 times the driven 1 plus the driver 1 plus quantity squared over 4c. That will be equivalent to pi over 2 times the driven 2's diameter plus the driver's 2 diameter plus quantity of the delta squared over 4c. Okay, by substituting the values, we can get pi over 2 over 4c. So, we have this given c is equivalent to 24 inches. 4 times 24. That will be equivalent to pi over 2 times d2 plus d2 plus delta of the driver and driven over 4c. So, ito po ang ating equation 1. So, magkadugtong po yan, no? So, in order to get the relation of D2 and the driven 2, so we will get this, or we will use this formula, N2 over the constant RPM is equal to the diameter of the driver 2 over the diameter of the driven 2. So, substituting the values, we can get 450 over 150 RPM is equivalent to D2 over D2. Okay? So, rearranging this equation, we can get D2 is equal to thrice D2. So, ito ay substitute natin sa ating equation 1. So, ayusin po natin. Ayusin ko lang po. So, we have to equate equation 2 to the equation 1. We can get pi over 2 times 18 plus 3 plus 18 minus 3 squared over 4 times 24 is equivalent to pi over 2 times 3d2 plus d2 plus 3d2 minus d2 squared over 4 of c. So, by shift solve, we can get the value of the driven 2 as well as the driver 2. So, we get d2 is equal to 16.28 inches. Okay, so from equation kanina, d2 is equal to 3d2, we get d2 is equivalent to 5.43 inches. So, nakuha na natin ang dalawa sa limang hinahanap. So, ang ating D2 ay 16.28. And ang ating driven 2 ay 5.43 inches. So, dalawa na lang po. Okay, ayusin ko lang. So, in order to get the driver tree's diameter as well as the driven tree's diameter, we are going to use the relation of this formula, which is pi over 2 times d2 plus the difference of these values squared all over 4c. That will be equivalent to pi over 2 as well times the diameter of the driven tree's pulley plus the driver or the driven tree's pulley plus their difference squared over 4c. So from the first formula, we can solve the relationship of these two values. So, substituting the given, we get 75 RPM over 150 RPM is equivalent to D3 over D3 of the driven shaft or pulley. So, rearranging this equation, we can get the relationship of the driver and the driven as D3 is equal to 1/2 of the diameter of the driven tree. So, we have our equation 1, and equation 2. So, by substituting the values to the recent formula, we get 5.43 plus 16.28 plus their difference over 4 times the c, which is 24. That is equivalent to pi over 2 times the relationship, which is 1 half d3 plus d3 plus their difference squared over 4c. So by shift solve, we can get d3 is equivalent to 7.37 inches. And from the recent equation a while ago, we can conclude that d3 of the driver shaft is equivalent to 14.75 inches. So that is being solved with the help of calculator. So di na po natin pinakita for time's sake. So yun lang po. D3 is equivalent to 14.75 and the driven pulley is equivalent to 7.37 inches. So let's proceed to our next problem for equal step pulley.